Let's be honest. People rarely say, "Hey, I resent you." They don't wave a flag. They drip poison, slowly, silently. And if you're not paying attention, you'll mistake resentment for friendship until the knife is already in your back. Today, I'll show you signs someone secretly resents you, and once you learn them, you'll never mistake fake smiles for loyalty again. 1. They ask leading questions to make you doubt yourself. This is one of the most underrated but most dangerous signs of resentment because it hides behind the mask of concern. On the surface, it seems harmless. In fact, to outsiders, it might even look like they're being thoughtful. But to you, the person they're targeting, it's mental warfare in slow motion. Let's be real. Not everyone who doubts you hates you. Sometimes friends and family genuinely worry and want the best for you. But a resentful person, they weaponize doubt. They turn it into a scalpel, making small, precise cuts to your confidence until you're bleeding self-doubt without even realizing it. Here's how it works. Instead of outright saying, "I don't believe you can do this," they wrap it in a just asking package. "Are you sure you're ready for that? Don't you think that's a bit risky for someone like you? Isn't that a little out of your league?" The genius, if we can even call it that, of this tactic is that it forces you to defend yourself. Now you're the one explaining, justifying, rationalizing why you can do something you already believed in 5 minutes ago. And here's the dangerous part. If they ask these questions enough times, your brain starts replaying them when they're not even around. Suddenly, before taking a step forward, you hear their voice in your head whispering, "Are you sure?" That's not doubt anymore. That's programming. Why do they do this? Because they want to shrink you without looking like the bad guy. If they outright insult you, you could call them out. But if they just ask questions, well, now they're just being cautious, just trying to help, just looking out for you. See the trap? They get to plant the seed of insecurity while still keeping their hands clean. I've seen this play out in real life, and it's ugly. A friend of mine once wanted to launch his own photography business. He had talent, a portfolio, and clients ready to pay. But there was one person in his circle, someone who secretly couldn't stand seeing him succeed, who kept dropping these little innocent questions. Do you really think there's enough money in photography? Isn't the market already saturated? What if no one books you after the first few months? After weeks of this, my friend's excitement turned into hesitation. He started delaying his launch, reworking his website, waiting for the right time. Translation: he started believing the very doubts that person planted in his head. And that's exactly what resentment looks like in action. It doesn't shove you off the cliff. It convinces you to step back from the edge on your own. Here's how to spot it early. The timing is always before you take action. They never question you after you've succeeded, only before you start. Their questions are always about your ability, never the actual challenge. They don't say, "That's a tricky market." They say, "That's tricky for you." They repeat the same doubts, even after you've addressed them. A supportive person drops it when you explain. A resentful one keeps circling back. The fix: you need to build an internal filter. The moment someone asks a concerned question, run it through your head. Is this coming from genuine care or from hidden envy? Do they have a track record of supporting me or undermining me? Would they be happier if I failed? If the answer leans toward the last two, you have your answer. And here's the part most people don't want to hear. Sometimes the only way to protect yourself from this subtle sabotage is distance, not confrontation, not trying to prove them wrong, just quiet, calculated distance. Because here's the truth. When someone keeps asking you if you're sure what they're really hoping for is that you'll start answering. No, don't give them that satisfaction. 2. They nitpick small things you do. If resentment had a soundtrack, nitpicking would be the background noise, quiet, constant, and irritating enough to make you question your every move. A resentful person rarely comes at you head-on. They don't criticize your major decisions outright because that's too obvious. Instead, they chip away at you with small, harmless observations. You used the wrong fork for that. Why do you always hold your phone like that? Interesting shirt choice again. On paper, these sound trivial. That's the beauty and the poison of nitpicking. Each little jab feels too small to call out without looking overly sensitive. But here's the truth. Nitpicking isn't about the shirt or the fork or how you hold your phone. It's about control. Why they do it. Nitpicking is a dominance game. A resentful person uses it to subtly establish that they're the one with the upper hand. By pointing out tiny flaws, they're sending the unspoken message, I'm watching you and I'm above you. Think about it. If they truly cared, they'd mention something once and move on. But nitpicking isn't about improving you. It's about keeping you in a constant state of self-correction. How it feels over time. At first, you laugh it off. Oh, that's just how they are. But then it becomes a pattern. You start noticing how you hesitate before speaking, double-check your clothes before leaving the house, or avoid certain gestures just so they won't comment. And that's when they've won. You've allowed them to live rent-free in your head. The dangerous part. This behavior seems insignificant, which makes it incredibly hard to address without sounding like you're overreacting. If you say, stop criticizing how I stir my coffee, you risk looking petty, and they know this. That's why they aim small. It keeps them in the clear. But resentment isn't about one big explosion. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. Example, I once had a coworker who never confronted me about actual work issues. But every single day, she'd point out something minor. My weird way of arranging papers. The fact that my water bottle was too big. How I overused certain words in emails. None of it mattered. But after months, I realized I was spending more time adjusting harmless habits than focusing on my actual job. That's when it hit me. This wasn't feedback. It was resentment dressed as helpfulness. Signs it's nitpicking, not genuine advice. It's constant. Real advice is rare and meaningful. Nitpicking is a daily ritual. It's about personal quirks, not real problems. They don't care if it's wrong. They care that you did it. They act smug when they point it out. There's a flicker of satisfaction in their eyes, like they caught you making a mistake. How to deal with it? The key is not to feed it. If you react defensively, they get satisfaction. If you over-explain, they get more control. If you try to fix yourself to please them, you're playing their game. Instead, respond with calm indifference. Don't acknowledge the nitpick beyond a neutral noted, or even a light shrug. And if it keeps happening, create distance. Nitpicking thrives on proximity. You can't be a constant target if you're not constantly available. Because here's the bottom line. People who truly respect you don't spend their energy finding flaws in every breath you take. And someone who's always pointing out the smallest imperfections isn't trying to help. They're trying to make sure you never feel perfect in the first place. 3. They keep score. If you want to know whether someone's friendship with you is real or just a quiet competition, watch how they handle favors, kindness, and generosity. A healthy person gives without a running tally in their head. They help because they want to, not because they're waiting for the payback. But someone who secretly resents you, oh, they have an invisible scoreboard, and you're always losing on it. How it looks in real life. They'll say things like, "Remember that time I helped you move?" Yeah, well, I stayed up all night to help you with that project, and now you can't even, after all I've done for you. This is how you treat me. Every good deed they do is carefully recorded, not in kindness, but as leverage. And here's the kicker. They don't bring it up right away. They save it for the perfect moment, usually when they want something from you, or when you've done something they don't like. Why? It's a red flag for resentment. Keeping score isn't just about fairness, it's about control. By holding a list of what they've done for you, they're subtly putting you in their debt. And debt is a powerful tool for manipulation. Think about it. If someone genuinely likes and respects you, they won't keep receipts for every small thing they've done. But a resentful person wants to be able to say, "You owe me," even if they never say the words out loud. The hidden motive. Here's where it gets darker. Sometimes they do nice things for you specifically, so they can collect points on that scoreboard. They're not helping you because they want to help. They're making an investment in future guilt trips. That's why, over time, you start to feel uneasy when they offer to help. You know there's going to be a bill for it later, and it's never just the cost, it's interest, too. Personal example, I had an old friend who was like this. At first, I thought she was just naturally generous, always offering to pick me up, help me with errands, bring me food when I was busy. But then, months later, every argument we had would include a laundry list of these favors. It was never about the actual disagreement. It was about how much I owed her, according to her mental ledger. One day it hit me. She wasn't helping me out of kindness. She was building a case against me. The effect on you, living under someone's scoreboard, is exhausting. You start keeping your own list, just to defend yourself. Conversations turn into transactions. Relationships start feeling less like friendships and more like unpaid debts. And here's the thing, when someone keeps score with you, they will never feel even. The scoreboard will always tilt in their favor, because that's the only way they feel superior. How to spot it early? They bring up past favors in unrelated arguments. Their kindness always has a follow-up request attached. They get visibly upset if you don't repay them quickly enough. They're more interested in reminding you what they've done for you than in actually seeing you succeed. How to handle it? The best way to deal with a scorekeeper is to stop playing the game entirely. If they offer to help, politely decline unless you truly need it. If they bring up the scoreboard, don't get defensive. That just fuels them. Simply say, "I appreciate what you did, but I didn't realize it came with a debt attached." And if they keep doing it, step back. Because people who keep score aren't keeping track of fairness. They're keeping track of how much control they can have over you. Bottom line, a relationship should be built on trust, respect, and mutual care, not on invisible ledgers and debt collection. If someone's always reminding you what they've done for you, they're not keeping a friendship, they're keeping receipts. 4. They're extra polite when others are around. If you've ever wondered what a two-faced person really looks like, this is Exhibit A. One-on-one, they're cold, dismissive, maybe even passive-aggressive. But the moment other people enter the room, they transform into the warmest, most charming, most caring version of themselves. And let me tell you, it's not because they suddenly remembered they like you. It's because they like how it looks to like you. The two worlds they create. there's private you and public you. Private you gets the eye rolls, the minimal effort responses, and the "I'm too busy" attitude. Public you gets the fake smile, the over-the-top compliments, and the "we're such good friends" act. The switch is so smooth you almost feel crazy for noticing it. 1 second they're barely acknowledging you, and the next they're putting an arm around you and telling everyone how amazing you are. Why they do it? This behavior isn't about you, it's about their image. A resentful person doesn't want to look resentful. They know open hostility makes them look bad, so they cover it with public politeness. It's a performance, and you're one of their props. By acting overly nice in front of others, they not only protect their own reputation, but they also create doubt about your side of the story. If you ever call them out, think about it. If you tell mutual friends, "They're cold and dismissive with me," those friends will say, "Really? But they're always so nice to you." And that's exactly how they want it. The deeper resentment at play. Here's the ugly truth. They might even enjoy being cold to you in private, because they know it's such a stark contrast to how they treat you in public. It gives them a sense of control. You know the real them, but no one else does. It's psychological gaslighting. You start to wonder if you're imagining things because they're clearly nice in front of everyone else. Personal example, I once worked with someone like this. In meetings with the team, she'd smile at me, praise my work, even say, "We couldn't do this without you." But the moment we were alone, emails went unanswered. Requests were ignored. She'd talk to me like I was an inconvenience. The worst part, everyone thought we had this great working relationship. And if I had complained, I would have looked like the ungrateful one. That's the power of public politeness. It makes the private truth harder to believe. Signs it's happening to you. Their tone changes drastically, depending on the audience. They save the friendly behavior for situations where they can be seen. The warmth disappears the second the last person leaves the room. You dread being alone with them because you know the politeness won't follow. How to handle it? The most important thing is to stop expecting the public version of them to be real. Accept that their kindness is a mask, and masks are for show, not for you. Don't confront them in front of others. That's playing their game. If you must call them out, do it privately and directly. Or better yet, pull back and limit your exposure. You can't stop someone from performing, but you can stop being their favorite prop. Bottom line, when someone treats you better in public than in private, it's not kindness, it's politics. And politics always has an agenda. 5. They offer help you never asked for, then criticize you. On the surface, it looks like generosity. They swoop in, all smiles, saying, "Here, let me help you with that." But behind the curtain, there's a much darker motive. This isn't real kindness. It's a setup. Here's the pattern. They insist on helping you with something you never asked for, never needed help with, and were perfectly capable of handling on your own. Then, once they've inserted themselves into the process, they use it as an excuse to nitpick, point out mistakes, and position themselves as the more competent one. Why they do it? This is not about being supportive. It's about power and optics. By inserting themselves into your work, they create an opportunity to discover your flaws and then fix them. It's a subtle way of saying, "See, you can't do this without me." Some people call this helping. In reality, it's a backdoor criticism wrapped in false generosity. How it plays out, you're cooking, and they hover over you, offering to help stir the sauce. Then they tell you you're doing it wrong. You're writing a presentation, and they just glance at your slides, then announce all the things they'd change. You're fixing something at home, and they offer to assist, only to comment on how unsafe your method is. In every case, you didn't invite them in. They pushed their way in, and once inside, they turned the situation into proof that you were somehow inadequate. The psychological trap. This tactic is dangerous because it disguises criticism as goodwill. If you push back, you risk looking ungrateful. People might even side with them. They were just trying to help. Wow, you can't even take feedback. Meanwhile, you're left feeling undermined and second-guessed, but you can't easily call it out without looking petty. That's the beauty of this resentment tactic. It's almost impossible to challenge without making yourself look like the bad guy. Personal example, I once had a colleague who was notorious for this. Anytime I was working on something, she'd pop by to see if I needed a hand. At first I thought she was just friendly, but I started noticing a pattern. She'd never help silently. She'd always leave with a comment about how she fixed something I'd done, or how she saved me from making a mistake. One time, she even took over my project completely, then bragged to others about how much better it turned out because of her help. That's when I realized this wasn't assistance. This was a slow campaign to make herself look superior. How to spot it early? They offer help without being asked, and don't take no for an answer. Their help always comes with unsolicited criticism. They retell the story later in a way that makes them look like the hero and you the amateur. They seem more interested in highlighting what you did wrong than in actually supporting you. Why? It's resentment, not kindness. True kindness respects boundaries. It waits for an invitation. Resentment, on the other hand, forces its way in. Because the goal isn't to help you succeed, it's to prove that you can't succeed without them. How to handle it? The moment they offer help you didn't request, politely but firmly decline. Thanks, I've got this covered. I appreciate it, but I'm good. If they push, stand your ground. And if they do manage to wedge themselves in and then criticize you, don't argue. Just respond with a neutral, noted, and carry on. The less emotional energy you give them, the less control they have over the narrative. Bottom line, help is only help when it's wanted. When someone repeatedly forces assistance on you just to find fault, it's not generosity. It's a quiet declaration that they resent your independence and want to chip away at it until you start depending on them. Because in their mind, your success is only acceptable if they can take some of the credit for it. 6. They talk about themselves right after your achievement. You've just shared something you're proud of. Maybe you got a promotion, finally finished a tough project, or even hit a personal milestone you've been working toward for months. You're smiling, expecting genuine excitement from them. And they do smile for about 2 seconds. Then, without missing a beat, they steer the conversation right back to themselves. Suddenly, your hard-earned moment becomes an opening for them to talk about how they once got a bigger promotion, finished a harder project, or achieved something that makes your accomplishment look small in comparison. This isn't just about being socially unaware. It's a subtle way of pulling the spotlight away from you and putting it back on them. People who do this often can't stand not being the center of attention, and your success threatens their self-image. Rather than celebrating you, they feel the need to reassert their own importance, as if the room only has space for one winner, and it has to be them. The danger here is how sneaky this behavior can be. On the surface, it may seem harmless. They might even preface it with, "That's amazing. It reminds me of when I..." But that's exactly the problem. By comparing your moment to theirs, they dilute your accomplishment, shifting the emotional focus of the conversation. Over time, this can make you feel like your achievements are never truly seen or valued, because somehow they always end up as just a footnote in someone else's story. It's also worth noting that people like this aren't always overtly competitive. Sometimes it's less about one-upping you and more about an unconscious need to validate themselves. Still, the result is the same. You walk away from what should have been a celebratory moment, feeling strangely overlooked or even deflated. It's a subtle form of selfishness, and it can reveal a lot about how they view relationships, not as mutual support systems, but as stages where attention is a prize to be fought over. When you notice this happening repeatedly, pay attention. A truly supportive person knows how to hold space for your moment without making it about them. They understand that real connection comes from sharing in each other's joy, not hijacking it. If someone consistently can't let you have that space, you might be dealing with someone who doesn't actually want to see you win, at least not more than they do. If you want, I can also give you the next expanded point in the same detailed, sharp, and slightly controversial tone, so it flows with the rest. 7. They give backhanded advice. Backhanded advice is one of the most subtle and infuriating ways people reveal their hidden jealousy. On the surface, it sounds like they're guiding you, mentoring you, or just being honest. But dig deeper, and you realize their words aren't meant to lift you. They're designed to plant seeds of doubt in your mind. It's the friend who says, "That's great you started your own business, but you know most of them fail in the first year, right?" Or the colleague who tells you, "You're really good at this, but maybe you should slow down before you burn yourself out." These aren't neutral statements. They're little verbal daggers disguised as concern. The problem with this kind of advice is that it always arrives at the wrong moment, right after you've made progress, celebrated a win, or taken a bold step forward. Instead of encouragement, you get a carefully wrapped package of discouragement. And the worst part, they make you feel guilty for even questioning their intentions. If you call them out, they'll insist you're overreacting or being too sensitive. What's really happening is psychological. By framing their advice in a negative or cautionary way, they subtly reframe your achievement as fragile, risky, or even undeserved. This chips away at your confidence, making you second-guess your decisions and slow down your momentum. I've seen people disguise their jealousy this way in professional settings too. A manager might say, "You're doing great in this role, but don't get too comfortable. Things can change fast in this company." Translation? They don't want you to feel secure in your position because your success makes them feel insecure about theirs. The real danger is that over time, this type of support can become a voice in your own head. You start anticipating their criticisms, doubting yourself before you've even taken the next step. That's exactly what they want, because if you're always looking over your shoulder, you're less likely to outpace them. The best way to deal with this: recognize it for what it is, projection wrapped in politeness. Filter their words the way you would filter spam. Take only what's useful and delete the rest from your mind. And remember, true advice builds, it doesn't belittle. If someone's wisdom consistently makes you feel smaller, it's not guidance, it's sabotage in disguise. Ask ChatGPT. At the end of the day, spotting these subtle, often disguised behaviors isn't about becoming paranoid. It's about protecting your self-worth. Not everyone who smiles at you is in your corner. And not everyone who gives advice wants to see you win. The sooner you learn to separate genuine care from veiled disrespect, the less power these people will have over your emotions, your decisions, and your life. So stay alert, protect your energy, and remember, actions will always speak louder than any sweet, carefully chosen words.